Okay, sure. I was trying to get to my usual afternoon nap, but I was feeling kind of down because of the day's events, where my dad disowned me. So, I thought, man, then I just got so pissed off. Like, I was feeling like, you know, like fuck these people, fuck the world, fuck everything, and it's like I'm gonna fight back. I'm gonna stand for who I am, and I'm not gonna let people treat me like shit. Okay, that's right. Transphobia sucks. Um, I don't want to hide. I don't want to hide who I am, what I feel like, and all that. Um, yeah. So fuck the world. I should be laughing. So, stop laughing. It's not a good habit. Anyway, it's like I bought this like last year. These wigs. Shit, how many wigs did I bought 2 wigs. He only has a 1 wig. Where's the other one? The other one's in there. So I think there's a way to wear wigs, which I am not really good at knowing. This is a synthetic hair. I think I need to get some kind of a thing so you can put your hair inside or something. I don't know why I chose this stupid color. Like, what the fuck? How the hell do you wear this? How do you wear this? How do you do it? It's cost me like, oh, it cost my mother actually. It cost like $80 or something. Something like that. How do you wear this wig? How do you wear it? Wear it. I was going for some kind of a Japanese rocker. Japanese rocker chick. I look like a goddamn fool. Some people actually like this style. So, yeah, fuck me for that. Yeah, okay, it doesn't look that good here, but you know, when I get the proper. Hey. I want my natural hair to grow long, like real long, like as long as this hair, and longer. I want my hair to be. I kind of like this. I kind of like this wig actually. I think I want to just get whatever they used to. Oh, what the hell did I do? Fuck. I was looking good back then and I fucked it up. Oh yeah, that's better. Shit. Yeah, I was talking to my brother, and I was trying to, because I felt like my brother was sort of, I think he was feeling, I felt like there was, I could sense this kind of tension or some kind of unspoken thing, and I sort of went into the room and, hey, look at my body, it's changing, and what do you think of it, and all of that. Yes, this is me talking about me, so whatever. As I talk about myself, you don't have to watch this. No one has to watch this if you don't want to watch this. I kind of like this wig actually. You know, it's like inside is black and outside is this color. It kind of goes well. Yeah, I like it. I like this wig. I like it. I think I made a good choice here. Oh yeah. Transphobia sucks. Fuck the planet. And whatever. There's this term called transmisogyny. I don't know what that means. I've heard of it before. Misogyn. Yeah, there you go. Transmisogyny. Oh, this is. Oh, this is a thing called everydayfeminism.com. That seems. What is transmisogyny? What is it? Let's talk about transmisogyny. There's someone holding a sign saying transmisogyny is still misogyny. Let's talk about transmisogyny. This word describes so much of what we see in the cultural and systemic treatment of trans women in our culture and ties in so clearly with feminism, and yet it's not a word that many people know about or understand. You may have heard of transphobia, the discrimination of and negative attitudes toward transgender people based on their gender expression. Yes, we know what transphobia is. It's a discrimination and negative attitude. And you have likely heard of misogyny, the hatred and denigration of women and characteristics deemed feminine. Yes, if you know that too. Transmisogyny then is the confluence of these, the negative attitudes expressed through cultural hate, what is culture? Culture is all that modes of expression. Individual and state violence and discrimination directed towards trans women and trans people on the feminine end of the gender spectrum. Yeah, there are those people who are trans but who are sort of gender queer. I would identify myself as a trans woman, so. Who is victimized by transmisogyny? Transmisogyny targets transgender and transsexual women, male to female people who are assigned a male gender at birth but have transitioned to identify as women. Transgender women are not the only people who experience transmisogyny. Trans people who don't necessarily identify as women but who present feminine characteristics and now identify along the feminine end of the gender spectrum are also on the receiving end of transmisogyny. So I guess if you present as some kind of a androgynous but feminine kind of leaning, transmisogyny is all about hatred of the feminine, and it is not limited to what only those who identify as women. It includes trans feminine and feminine these is getting a bit complicated. Trans feminine and feminine identified gender queer people, as well as many others who are feminine of center but were not assigned a female gender at birth. So anyone who's like feminine or whatever. So for the purpose of simplicity and brevity in this article, I will use the term trans women. The asterisk used to mark inclusivity of those who are not necessarily transgender but are also not cisgender. To refer to all people victimized by transmisogyny, when specifically referring to transgender women, I will use that terminology. The trans women experience a particular kind of sexist marginalization based in their unique position of overlapping oppressions. They're both trans and feminine. They are devalued by society on both accounts. Because, so I'm like a trans person because I wasn't born female. So there's a discrimination based on that. Like, hey, you were born in a male. What the hell are you doing? You should be a man. So there's that discrimination. And then there's a discrimination which is directed towards women, towards the feminine in this culture. Patriarchal culture. Yes. So you take both of that and then you apply it to to a trans woman. So a trans woman is in a really marginalized position. Not only is she discriminated against because she identifies as female, but she's discriminated against because she's a trans person. She wasn't born that way. Uh, yeah, I know this, how this, some people think there is no such thing as the patriarchy or whatever, and I mean, you need to have a standard, right? If you look at nature, nature will reward bigotry, cruelty, violence, But if you look at reason, what's fair, then you can say how, when we look at societies, yeah, the women are getting oppressed. They're not having the same rights as men, so that is unfair. It is, from a rational perspective, a society which discriminates against a group of people because of their gender or sex is, that's, it's not a fair thing to do. So the word patriarchy is a way to recognize that the way societies have evolved on this planet, we came from this evolutionary thing. It's not right. It's not fair if the society is such that certain groups of people, in this case half the population, is being discriminated against because of their gender and sex. So yeah, so that's how you can understand patriarchy. It's just because it evolved from nature doesn't mean it's good. We apply reason and critique what happens in nature or how things happened in history. There are lots of things which happen in history which are not good. So yeah. Transmisogyny reflects the hatred of those who do not fit easily into either side of the gender binary. Trans women are not always easily categorized, and for people and institutions whose understanding of gender relies deeply in the repressive gender binary, this is confusing, transgressive, and for some worthy of hate. Yeah, I can understand that, like when I go to the stupid job center, I really hate that place. It's just so depressing. The people who come there seem so negative, and it's like there's really a depressing environment. I don't feel supported there. I hate that place. I can tell you that. I don't like this place. Maybe I should change my I don't like this agency I'm enrolled with. I think maybe I'll see if I can change it or whatever. Oh yeah, well, I actually got an email from someone. They're saying that. So I have an interview on the 19th of June. It's sort of like an agency where they screen people. It's like those people who's temp work and all that stuff. So, so if they have a vacancy, they'll send you there or whatever, stuff like that. So yeah. Trans femininity and sexism. Our society is steeped in the notion that women and characteristics coded as feminine are inferior to men, and those qualities coded as masculine. In our society, in a sexist society, being a woman automatically places you in a position of less value. But to give up one's important position as a man, choosing as trans people are perceived to do, to be a woman and to be feminine, in a way poses a fundamental threat to male superiority and may be seen as a rejection of the superior male identity. Trans women are not only a reminder to society that gender categories are not fixed, but also that womanhood and feminine gender expression is not something to be ashamed of. Yes, that is a important point. Now, in my last video, I said I was kind of ashamed. What I was talking about there was not like if there's anything wrong with being female. It's sort of like it's hard to be. It's hard to be different. It's hard to be like, like people will make fun of you, or if I was, look at me, all right, just look at me. I mean, people people gonna take me seriously, or yeah. Well, I don't know if I explained that well. I don't think. Yeah, it's like society tells you you are supposed to be a certain way, and if you don't conform to that way, then there's something wrong with you, or you are not good enough. So the way I was seeing it was like, if you're a male, you got to live up to male standards, or if you're a woman, you've got to be a woman, or whatever. So it was a very rigid kind of gender binary. That's where I sort of grew up in, or whatever. And yeah, in this way, yeah, like, so being trans is like, you're I don't know, when I was walking to the job center, I saw these two guys coming towards me, and I was like, oh my god, two guys. They were like young too. They were like young men, maybe in their 20s or whatever. I was like, oh my god, oh my god. And then I sort of, when I was walking close to them, they were looking at me. They looked at me, but I just sort of looked down, as I tend to do. Like, I'm ashamed. The look of shame where you look down. My automatic reaction to everything. Look at all this hair coming out. So yeah, I mean, I can understand how people will. You are kind of transgressing the rigid gender binary, repressive, whatever it is. Yeah, some people might be, might be uncomfortable. In this way, understanding transmisogyny is absolutely imperative to our work as feminists, and makes clear just how integral trans issues and rights are to our work around gender. Not only is transmisogyny steeped in sexism, but the resulting oppression is parallel to what cisgender, those who identify with the gender of which they were assigned at birth, women face: physical objectification, over-sexualization, stereotyping, policing of bodies, a discrimination on all levels of society, and individual and systemic acts of violence. The violence of transmisogyny. Transmisogyny rears its ugly head in many ways and on all levels of society. We see it, for instance, in violence on an individual level. Hate crimes against trans people are disproportionately and tragically high, and the majority of this violence victimizes trans women. See, most of the people, I don't know why, like, isn't it kind of strange that trans women are the ones who are often the victims of transphobia and trans violence, whereas trans men are not usually, it seems like they're saying that, it's like mostly trans women. So it's like, why is that? Why is there more? Maybe it's because the people who commit the violence are men. You see, if you're a trans woman and straight, as most trans women I think are, then if you're putting yourself in a position where you're interacting with men on a social or dating or whatever level, and perhaps that could subject you to violence, because men can commit a lot of physical violence and stuff. But if you're a trans man, and trans men are usually attracted to women, so I guess they might not face necessarily the same type of violence, because, you know, women, I don't think they usually commit the same kind of violence as men do, so I guess that's the difference, because if you're a trans woman, you are going to engage socially with other men, and just like women get, you know, assaulted and all that, trans women will also get more of the violence directed. In fact, over half of all anti-LGBTQIA plus over the homicides were perpetrated against transgender women. And while we're talking statistics, it's important to note that nearly 3/4 of those homicides targeted people of color. Alright, so this is kind of interesting for me because I'm obviously not white, so I am a person of color. So I've got this crazy intersection of all of these things. I'm a person of color, I am a transgender woman, yeah. So those, it's there's a lot of negative. I mean, I don't like making me look like a victim or anything, but that is a lot of things to deal with, you know. So it's an interesting position to be in. We see transmisogyny in state violence as well. Okay, all right. They're saying like the police, nearly half of trans people who reported hate crimes to the police experienced mistreatment from them while asking for help. So they're saying like the state is oppressing trans women. In the media, while trans men are generally ignored and made invisible by American media, trans women are exoticized, their existence perceived as shocking and newsworthy. They are mocked, over-sexualized, and fetishized. Trans women are given an extremely two-dimensional portrayal in the news, where they are most often reported on in association of a hate crime. In these reports, their gender is consistently portrayed as confusing and illegitimate, appearing in countless headlines like this one: "Man dressed as woman found dead." Our media portrays trans women in archetypes as a weak victim of a crime, or as the evil villain, as the mentally unstable character, or as the manipulator one. Oh shit, all of these negative things. They play countless television roles as sex workers. They are shown as unattractive. They are the butt of jokes. They desire to be feminine mocked. Their motives for transitioning questioned. They are often pathologized and sexualized, portrayed as someone manipulatively hiding their transgender identity to trick a man into engaging with them sexually or romantically. Yeah, this is one of the reasons. Yeah, this is one of the fears or like negative stereotypes. And while it is difficult to find complex and honest portrayals of trans women characters on television, it is even more rare to find an authentic and respectful portrayal of a trans woman of color, though we have seen a few recently, like the great Laverne Cox in Orange is the New Black. Sadly, trans misogyny is also very present in LGBTQIA plus spaces where trans women, particularly trans women of color, are marginalized within an already marginalized group. The mainstream LGBT movement has been called out many times for excluding trans people, and there is a pervasive sexism in the movement as well as in social spaces that promotes trans misogyny and a denigration of feminine qualities. Masculine privilege, like white privilege, does not disappear once one is in a queer space, and trans women have been accused of hurting the movement due to the visible transgression of many of society's norms involved in being a trans woman. And although it should be the last place where trans misogyny is present, sadly we see it often in cis women's spaces. Trans women are excluded from many domestic violence shelters and other crisis spaces that exist in response to violence against women in our society. Trans women continue to be excluded from many women-only spaces and feminist events, while some feminists continue to speak out against the very existence of trans women, arguing that they are not authentic women and that they are hurting the movement. Trans women have called these groups and spaces out, creating inclusive spaces in the meantime, citing that they experience sexism and homophobia in very real and concrete ways, and yet are excluded from the spaces which were created in response to these oppressions. What can we do? Trans misogyny, like sexism, is pervasive and structural, but it also exists in our everyday experiences. Once you understand it, you begin to notice it in personal interactions, on television, and in social movements and political campaigns. Call it out. Name it for what it is. Trans misogyny, like sexism, goes unnoticed too often because it is so entrenched in our social, cultural, and political understanding of gender. Educate others about this issue, and most importantly, don't be afraid to call out other feminists or gay rights advocates for trans misogynistic words and actions. These are the spaces we need to make more inclusive. Now, like recently, there was this whole issue over, the RuPaul's Drag Race thing or whatever. And some of the, drag queens aren't always transgender women or whatever. Some of them, I think most of them might be just gay guys. Drag is basically kind of like a mocking of femininity, or it's very outrageous. It's like something like that. And apparently on this show, there were some trans women contestants, and some of these drag queens, these gay guys, were sort of just calling trans women trannies and disrespecting them, and there was this whole controversy over the tranny word and whatnot. Yeah, so I myself won't use the word tranny in a everyday conversation, but I don't think but depending on the context, I don't think it's really offensive. You can use the word tranny in some contexts where it can be self-deprecating or humorous or whatever or something, so I don't outlaw the word, but I wouldn't use it in normal everyday conversation. If our movements seek to eradicate transphobia, homophobia, and sexism, then we must place trans misogyny, located at the intersection of these oppressions, at the forefront of our fight. So homophobia, it's kind of weird because if you're a trans woman, especially if you're a trans woman of color, there's this intersection of homophobia because trans women were born male, and when they have sexual relations or whatever with other men, even though trans women don't see themselves as guys, there is that issue of, it's sort of slightly underneath. It's sort of it's like, it's sort of like something that's, it's like a ghostly presence of the homosexuality is there. But like I said many times, I'm not gay. So transphobia is basically trans issue. Sexism is because of your identifying as a female, as a woman. So, and then there's the whole racism part if you're a woman of color, trans woman of color. I feel like I'm in a very my whole identity is that, this is not something I chose. Believe me, I wouldn't choose to be in this position. But for good or for bad, my life has brought me to a point where I am kind of in this position where I am like kind of an outsider. And when you think I'm an anti-natalist as well, that makes me way of an outsider. Effortless. Red button pushing effortless. So I kind of like it. I kind of like the position of being like this. I mean, like I said, I didn't choose this, and my philosophy is not some fad. It's based on reason and logic. That's why I am an anti-natalist, because it's the most reasonable thing. And I was an anti-natalist before I do transitioning. So, but yeah, I didn't choose this, but it has sort of fallen on me. You know what I mean? This is how the forces of history have the locus, expressing themselves in my identity in this very bizarre way. Anyway, yeah, transmisogyny sucks. Yeah, I'm gonna stand up for trans people because it really sucks to, I'm not gonna hide the fact that I am trans. I'm not going to try desperately to pass. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be ashamed. I'm when I have friends, or if I, when I, if I hopefully go out on dates or whatever, the person I go out with will know who I am. I'm not going to hide anything. I'm not going to do that. And regarding work, yeah, I'm not going to hide the fact that this is who I am. So, yeah, I'm not going to hide myself. I'm not going to hide who I am. I'm going to stand up and fight for trans people's rights. Yeah, I just want to mention, like, that part over here where in the media, while trans men are generally ignored. Yeah, that's kind of weird, because I've noticed that, like, trans men, like, there isn't a lot of trans men on YouTube, for instance. There's a ton of trans women, but there are, in comparison to trans women, there are fewer trans men. But you should see some of the videos where these trans men, like, my God, their bodies are, like, really masculine, and they work out and stuff like that. So you should see some of those videos. Impressive. But anyway, it's like trans women are trying to hyper feminize, and trans men are trying to hyper masculinize. It's like, well, we don't need to go all that extreme, but everyone can do what they want to do. It's their bodies and all that. So yeah, transphobia sucks. I'm gonna stand up for trans people's rights, and yeah, fuck society. Society sucks, and just fuck you. I'm gonna be who I am. I'm not gonna be shut up and excluded or whatever. Screw my dad too. Fuck him. Okay, if he wants to, like, whatever, disown me or whatever, just fuck you, Dad. I mean, I don't hate him. It's kind of complicated, because I don't want to be an asshole, complete asshole over here, but it's just like, yeah, I'm not going to feel ashamed of who I am just because people don't like me or whatever, even if it's family, or especially if it's family. Yeah, I'm not going to let people make me feel ashamed of myself, or make me feel bad about myself. Yeah, I'm proud to be who I am. This is who I am, and I'm not going to hide in the closet. I'm not going to run back to the closet and hide. No, I'm not going to do that. Fuck that. Yeah, there needs to be more education and all of that. Yeah, I like this. I love this hair. I love it. Some of the hairs I'm going to comb. I think you can comb this. Yeah, I want to get a proper thing to put it on, because I'm not putting it on properly. I got another wig, but I'll show that next time. Okay. Transmisogyny sucks. Educate yourselves, peoples. Yeah.